Good to see you all. And as Kelly mentioned, many of us are sick, especially with little children. It's been a very tough season. It's a flu season, and this flu season is more severe than what I had before. And even I got sick for quite a few days. As you know, I went to New York for 5 days of family vacation, and then I got sick. I went in the Christmas break, so there were tons of people there on the street, and I could hardly move in Manhattan, and that's what I expected. I would get sick, and I did get sick. So I came back and been sick for 5 days, and my son and my daughter, they're all sick. I think my wife got sick too. I think she got sick before we got sick. Anyways, yeah, so we all got sick. We just get in line to get sick. And some of our families are also not here because their children are sick. And Jean Fan and Paul are not here because they are still, little Isaac is out of NICU. And thank you for your prayer. And they need time to adjust, to get into a new routine. And if you can imagine how difficult it is, and it's quite challenging. And keep them in prayer. And as Kelly told us, remember the people in Los Angeles. How many of you have friends and coworkers or relatives living in Los Angeles? How many of you? Oh, you do? Okay. All right. Yeah. Make sure you call them and pray for them. Yeah. I have some friends who live in Los Angeles, and they got evacuated. Yeah. And it's very difficult. Yeah. And you see news stories reporting, the whole town got wiped out. It's just horrible. It's horrible. May God have mercy on them. So good to see you all. Good to see you. Good to see you. Anyways, we continue to worship God, and with the number of people, we should get into circle actually. So that's what I've been thinking. Maybe we should get into circle and we can do a Bible study or something. But not today. Okay? In the future. All right? Yeah. And we are on this mini-series on the 10 Commandments, and we said these commandments are called 10 words. They are not being described as commandment in the Old Testament. In the Hebrew Bible, never used the word commandment, something that you have to do or you shall not do, to summarize these 10 things. Actually, the word used by the Old Testament is actually words. 10 words. So these are the 10 words, the 10 commandments, what we call, that God gave to the people of Israel when they are being constituted to be a new people of God, being saved out of Egypt by grace. And now they have a new identity. Being the people of God, they are given new principles to live by, a new lifestyle that says to God, thank you for saving me, God. And now we have a new lifestyle. We embrace a new set of identity, a new set of value system. And these value systems are being summarized by these 10 words. So we went through the first 3 commandments. And now we come to the 10th commandment, so-called commandment, or word number 4, the 4th principle. And here it says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On this day, the 7th day, you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor maidservant, nor your animals, nor the aliens, the foreigners within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But he rested. God rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Now, you have to remember the first audience who heard this word, this principle, were Israelites, and they have been living in Egypt for hundreds of years, for some generations. So when the Israelites are being saved by God out of Egypt, all of them are actually 100% Egyptians. You get what my point, right? You get my point. All of the clothing, all of the stuff that carry with them when they left Egypt in haste, everything is made in Egypt. So actually the identity of Israelite was not very clear at this point because they just got out of Egypt and every one of them lived like Egyptian and think like Egyptian and lived like Egyptian before. And what we know today is in ancient Egypt, slaves have a 10-day work week. So you work 10 days and then you get 1 day off. And then you work another 10 days and then 1 day off, perhaps, or sometimes not. And then 10 days and then 1 day off, right? So this is a typical ancient Egyptian slave work schedule, 10 days and then 1 day off. The Sabbath night lifestyle says something different. 6 days you shall work, and then 1 day you shall take a break. And you take a break by keeping it holy to worship God, to serve God. And you have to imagine, if you're the first audience out of Egypt, Israelite, you've been in Egypt working 10-day week for generations. And then you come to the foot of Mount Sinai, and Moses said, this is what the Lord God has given us. A new principle. Principle number 4 is 6 days you shall work, and then 1 day you shall take a break to keep it holy. And you kind of like, wow, this is actually humane, right? This is actually respecting human rights to take a break and to rest, not a workaholic. So you notice the scope of the principle is encompassing the entire cosmos, the entire human society. Note with me, who shall not work? You shall not work. Your son shall not work. And in the original language, your daughter shall not work. Your manservant, male servant, and the female servant, your female servant in the original language, and then your animals, the cattle, the sheep that work the ground, and then lastly, the alien, the foreigners within your gaze. So 7 categories encompassing the entire Israelite community, entire Israelite society. And the principle reveals the character of God. Who is God that would give this kind of principle? Because God is full of compassion. God is full of compassion. God is compassionate about especially slaves, those who have no power. Those who have no power to control the schedule. They're working under the Lord, the Master, and they have to work. And God, by giving this principle, shows that his heart is full of compassion and love for those people who rest. And this commandment also explains why you have to keep 6 days to work and then 1 day holy to take a break and keep it holy, keep it sacred. For in 6 days, that's how the Lord God did his work. Remember Genesis 1, there was 6-day creation. Definitely not a scientific report, but it's an artistic representation of how God worked. God worked 6 days. He set up the entire cosmos. And then on the 7th day, Genesis 2, he rested. He rested on the 7th day and blessed it. And because God worked this way, we, as the people of God, also need to work this way. It's interesting when we read from the very beginning of this document, 10 words, 10 commandments, from commandment 1, 2, 3, and now to 4, this is the first commandment that has to do with time and schedule. Time and schedule. How many of you still use the paper calendar? In the beginning of the year, you have to buy a new calendar. Only my wife. Yeah. Right? So you guys use electronic? Google Calendar? Something like that? Yeah. That's what I do. Yeah. But, my wife is very old school, and we have to buy paper calendar. By the end of the year, we buy a new calendar. So what I do is every single year is one of my routine. Toward the end of the year, I will go to Amazon or the bookstore to buy those monthly calendar, you have to flip, and then there's a beautiful picture on top, and probably a quote or here and there, and then you have these boxes, right? And toward the end of the year, I always buy a new one, and I always buy a Jewish calendar, because it has the lunar calendar in there. So the lunar calendar kind of falls in line with the Chinese or the Asian lunar calendar. So like the end of this year, end of this month is the new year for the lunar calendar. So I look at the calendar and I know what day it is in the Western calendar and then in the lunar calendar. So that's what we do. It has to do with schedule. And I want to ask you a question. When you became a Christian, when you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, it has to do with, first of all, your time. Jesus kind of we structure and we configure your schedule. Before you came to Christ, every single moment, every day, you're the boss, you're in charge. But you came to Christ, it has to do with some schedule change, right? God modified our week schedule. So 6 days, of course, we need to work. But in general, in the general pattern, we take 1 day off to serve God, right? And that's why we gather. That's why we keep on gathering. Yeah, I know it's snowing today, right? The weather is not very nice, but we still keep it holy because this is one of the commandments from God. And this is one of the applications we should have at the beginning of the year. Maybe it's our New Year resolution. We keep it holy, set it aside, and put it in our calendar, put it in our schedule, that we are to keep it holy, the Sabbath day, because God bless this time. So we worship together. Now, commandment number 5, principle 5, is honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Now, today, when we imagine family in the westernized society, now the son or the daughter, they get married and they probably will move out and build their own family, right? Buy their own houses and live somewhere else or move out of town and to somewhere else because of job, because of different reality. But in the Near East, in the ancient time, in the Bible time, most of the families are multi-generational. Now, how many of you still live in your family multi-generationally? With your grandpa and grandma? How many of you? No? Right? Most of the people don't live together with different generations. But in ancient Israel, it has always been the case. You live with your parents and your grandparents, and then probably 3 generations or even 4th generation living under one roof. And here it says, honor your father and your mother. In Hebrew is a very interesting language. It says honor, in English translation, it has the connotation of something that is heavy. When something that is valuable, when something that has dignity, that has value, that has importance, you kind of see it as something weighty. It's like a dumbbell. It's something that is heavy. So glory and honor are something that is with weight, just like your backpack or your luggage or a suitcase. You have to carry it around. So in order to give weight to others, someone has to have the resources to do so, especially financial resources. In the ancient time, of course, they don't use electronic money. They use coins or silver or gold bar to do business. So something that has value has weight, right? You carry your silver around in the marketplace to buy stuff. And that's the sense here. Honor your father and mother is to give them the weight, give them the heaviness, because they need to be honored. They need to have the resource. In the ancient society, there's no hospice, there's no assisted living or something like that. Everyone lives in the house, right? Your home is the hospice. Your home is the hospital. And that's why life and death, especially death, is not something foreign to the people in those times. They always see life and death in their houses. Baby being born, and then the elderly got sick and passed away. It's right in front of them. So here the commandment speaks of a resourceful person, a proper, narrowly defined, is a resourceful male. He has to give honor to his parents. And you think about it, the essence of the principle has to do with your heart orientation. This new principle, this new value says that one should not be self-centered, but looking after other people, especially parents, because the parents have legitimate needs, and one has to give resources, offer resources to fulfill it, to honor, to make it heavy, to make it honorable, so that you will live long in the land. Now, you is not singular, you is plural. It's talking about a nation, talking about a people, a community as a whole. So you can live long, you can continue longer, from generation to generation in the land, so that your community, in this case, the Israelite community, their society, if they look after one another, if they take care of one another, they're not self-centered community, they always look after one another, care for one another, their community will continue. Their community life will continue, enjoy longevity. That is the essence of the principle. Number 6, you shall not murder. You shall not murder. Now, this is a great translation. You shall not murder, because the older translation in English is thou shalt not kill. Right? The Hebrew word here translated murder correctly means taking innocent life. Thou shalt not take innocent life. So that's why modern translation try to correct that, or try to connote that kind of sense. It has to do with murder. Because the big deal about murder is that because the action will destroy an image of God. Because every man and woman is created in the very image of God. If you take an innocent life, shed innocent blood, means that you assault God's image and God himself. As Pastor Chi has already preaching or going through the Sermon on the Mount, I'm sure you know what that means. It's not about outward behavior. In fact, the entire document of Ten Commandments has to do less with outward behavior. It has to do with our inner heart, our motive, our heart orientation. So to hate a person is the root of murder. That's why that is the essence that the principle is trying to lay out. The 10 words have the inner, your heart orientation in mind. They address our motive, our heart. So we're called in this principle to treat other people with compassion instead of hatred. Principle number 7, thou shalt not commit adultery. Now in ancient Egypt, polygamy and adultery were very common, and it's very much so in the patriarchal society, because men would treat women as property and objects. Here, you shall not commit adultery. Again, the heart orientation is not so much like, I don't do certain things, so I keep the commandment. The essence has to do with our orientation to do something, do our best to protect the family of other people, to protect the dignity of other people, including women. Again, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus also talks about the spirit of the law, the commandment. It has to do with ungodly, lustful desires that try to objectify other people and use other people to satisfy our own desire. So that is the essence of this principle. Again and again, we see that the heart orientation is to protect other people. We are out here to protect other people, to care for other people, to protect their right and protect their dignity and honor. Number 8, you shall not steal. Now this principle assumes the right to own something, your property, your asset, your money. But it also sets a boundary for our possessions, for our desire to acquire things. Yes, we can own stuff. We can own asset. We can have our own property. But ultimately, God is the owner of all. And we are simply stewards, managers. We're just managers. God blesses us with different resources, financial resources and properties and all that. But God wants us to be honest with our relationship with Him and our relationship with our things. And there is a boundary there. Now, if you want to shed some light on how to apply this principle, we can always look for other scriptures, as what we did for other principles, like thou shalt not murder or thou shalt not commit adultery. You look for New Testament, you look for other Old Testament passages, how they apply it, so that you know how to live it. One of the passages in the Old Testament, actually it's the last book of the Old Testament, the book of Malachi. Actually, the prophet is teaching the people of God and say, there was a debate here, 3:8. Will a man rob God, yet you rob me? Now, who said that? God said this. God said to his people, will someone rob God? Yet you guys, pointing to the Israelite people, you rob me. But then you ask, there's a debate. And the people, rebut by saying, how do we rob you, God? We never rob you. This is our stuff. And God answered through the prophet Malachi in tithes and offerings. Right? In your offerings, you keep it only to yourself, because there is a portion of it that belongs to God. If you do that, it is robbery. It is stealing. Again, it sets a healthy boundary for our possessions so that we are not so absorbed by our materials. Materialism is not divine principle, but faithful stewardship is. And that's what this principle is all about. Principle 8. Principle 9, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Now, so often we read the service meaning of this verse. This principle number 9, and it often has to do with, don't lie, You got to tell the truth. But you have to pick on the terms here. It has to do with the context of legal testimony in the court. And in the ancient society, only the men have the social status and social power to be called upon by the court to give a legal testimony when a case is being processed, right? When someone is being prosecuted. And in Israel, a man may be called to give evidence in a legal proceeding. So the principle says that you have to tell nothing but the truth. A false testimony, therefore, is an abuse of your power. If you tell or you give a false testimony, you are engaging in character assassination. You try to assassinate someone who may not be guilty. And here, the essence has to do with the use of power, use of our social status and our social means. And the essence is to protect and defend your neighbor's character. You shall not give a false testimony. You should protect the other person's integrity. Now, all of these principles, we come to number 9. All of them has a nature of revealing God's character. So you take this principle and you read it, and you have to think about why this principle matters to God, because that has to do with the character of God. And here, number 9 reveals the character of God being truthful. God is a God of truth. God is a God of justice. So it matters to him when your neighbor is being accused without someone who defends for him, right? So thou shalt not give a false testimony against your neighbor. In the court, you don't abuse your power. You use your power, however, to protect and defend other people. Again, from principle number 1 to 9, the orientation has to do with, serving other people, protecting other people, uplifting other people. So you protect me and I protect you, right? We keep one another accountable and we love one another in the covenant. Number 10, that's the last one. Now this is an interesting one. It says, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, manservant, male servant, ox, donkey, the property, the stuff that your neighbor has, anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now again, in ancient Israel, when someone cannot pay a loan or because of disaster or because of sickness, he cannot pay a debt, the landlord has the power to take away pretty much everything. So the rich will become richer, and the poor can easily become poorer. And this principle has to do with drawing boundaries. Thou shalt not covet. Those things do not belong to you, and you shall not touch it. So this commandment is kind of unique because it has nothing to do with our behavior, right? How can you enforce this? There's no way you can enforce this, right? Because your heart is coveting something. It's right here inside. Nobody can see it, right? Nobody can see it, nobody can detect it until you do something, make your action reality. Coveting is your heart condition. This commandment is unique. You cannot enforce it. It goes right into, straight to the heart of the matter. It has to do with our greed. Set boundary for our desire to possess, our desires to have more. Now, the heart of the commandment, number 10, is contentment, right? You should be content with what you have. You should be thankful for what you have. Instead of all day long you trying to seek to increase your wealth, even at the expense of other people. Now, as you can see, all 10 commandments, all 10 principles are not some kind of self-improvement moral code. It is, however, a moral vision, right? You see, if every Israelite will take these principles and apply them in their daily life, what kind of society will it become? It will become a society that would love God. It will be a community that would take care of one another. Everyone is not taking care of themselves, not selfish. It's not self-centered, but other-centered. You come to the community of people of God. We seek to love God, right? Protect God's right to be worshipped. And then love other people with all our hearts and love our neighbors as ourselves. The 10 words actually challenge the people to use their power, and we orient their resources toward other people, to serve other people. The direct audience of the 10 words are actually male, father, because they have sons and daughters. They are married. You shall not commit adultery. They are pretty well off because they are resourceful. Their parents are aging. In this document, 10 Commandments, if you read it carefully and critically, the direct audience, of course, it applies to every person of God, every people of God, in every Israelite is applicable. However, the direct audience, the first audience of the 10 words, the 10 Commandments, are actually males, fathers, married people, and pretty well off. In today's term, probably middle-aged men and being kind of successful, stable in our career, in our family life, in terms of our property, in terms of our social status, everything is pretty stable. These 10 words are actually addressing directly to these people, right? In a way, it's addressing to all of us, right? We are all resourceful in our own ways, right? And we are blessed by God. And the 10 principles are a reorientation of our value system. When we come to God, when we come to know Him and follow Jesus, everything in our life, our time, our schedule, our resources, everything will be reconfigured. Reconfigured. I would like to use the analogy of what it means to come to Christ. The analogy is kind of like, when you come to Christ, your operation system is different. Your operation system is totally different. The value system is different. The orientation is totally different. You cannot use the old operation system to run your life. You use the new one. And here the 10 words are the new kind of operation system for our lives. We protect God's right to be worshipped. Only one God, no idol. Sabbath, keep it holy. We are called to reorient our heart to protect other people and to lift up other people with compassion and with care. It is no wonder in the Israelite society, if you flip the pages of the Old Testament, especially the first 5 books of Moses, what we call the Torah, you don't find police in the Torah. You have priests, you have prophets, you have teachers, you have farmers. You have many different roles in the moral world of the Torah, but you do not find Israelite police department in the Torah. You know why? Because if everyone observe and take to heart these principles, there's no need for law enforcement, right? In such kind of community, such kind of society, everyone is out to protect other people. Everyone is out there to care for other people. And actually, this is what Jesus said, right? If you sum up the entire Torah, He gave 2 statements. Love God with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength. And second of all, is love your neighbors as yourself. Now, if we, as a church, if we will take it to our hearts, what kind of community, what kind of fellowship can we build? It's not just we come here and consume something. We take something and we leave. If we come here and to contribute, to pray for other people, to care for other people, to love your neighbors, love your brothers and sisters as yourself, and love God with all your heart and all your strength, what kind of fellowship? It will be a community pleasing to God, right? It will be a community totally different from all other communities and clubs out there, all other social associations out there, because they are always bound by their own common interests, all by their own common benefit. But the church, the people of God, are called to be different, other-centered, love others, and pray for others, and care for others. And that's why in our weekly update, I have been doing something new starting this year. I want to do some weekly update in video format and send it out to the social media group. And I'll do one in Chinese, in Cantonese, and one in English. And I always want to encourage people to not only get up to date what's going on in our church, but to pray for our church, to care for other people, right? We come to church and ask not just how are you, no, how are you doing? Yeah, how can I pray for you? How can I care for you? How can I give so that I can make your life more abundant to bless you, right? So we can bless each other. Let's all do that, right? this coming week, take one of these principles, one of these 10 principles, and apply it in your home and in our church. Whatever that is, try to apply it. Take it to heart. Remember to love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might, and love your neighbors as yourself. Let's all pray. Father, you call us to be a different people because you are such a great and unique God. And you save us by grace out of land of slavery, out of sin and out of death. And now we are being called to take up this new identity, to have the honor to be called the people of God, your church, your followers. Help us, God. Help us to have this principle transform us from inside out. Reorient our heart desires so that we are not just self-seeking. And you call us to seek you and to love other people as ourselves. Build our church in love. Build up our community so that we can fellowship together, care for one another, and pray for one another. In this coming week, as we take some of these principles to apply in our home, in our church, in our lives, and I pray that you grant us grace so that we will live as your people to honor your name. In Christ's name, pray. Well, thank you very much for coming in the snow, and there was a refreshment prepared by Kelly. Again, she's out here to serve us, and we should appreciate. And please stay for a little bit for a time of fellowship and to enjoy the refreshment together. All right? See you next week.